Hey there, and welcome to our next edition of the Redbubble Talks. This is the second series, this is the second talk in our series, with monthly tech and creative talks happening for the rest of the year. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for loads more coming up. The next talk we have is actually a Dribble meetup. It'll be on the 11th of February, and it will all be announced via our social media. Today, however, we have 4 different creatives talking about the topic of branding. We have Eddie Zammit from T-World, illustrator and fine artist Marian Machismo, digital and traditional illustrator Matthew Dunn, and Saul Attack from Boywolf. Just to give you a quick rundown, you are currently at Redbubble HQ. We are founded in Melbourne in 2007 and are now based around the world. Redbubble is an artist marketplace where creatives can upload their work for free and turn it into a range of products. Today we have a discussion panel at the end of the talk where you have the opportunity to pry information from the speakers. However, in case you forget them like I do, feel free to tweet them to @Redbubble_Oz with the hashtag RBTalks. We can always ask them on your behalf at the end. Today we're also lucky enough to have Nicole Reed photographing our speakers and Visible Studio filming it so it can be viewed again. We will be sharing the links of all talks created shortly. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to our first speaker tonight, T-shirt extraordinaire, Eddie Zammit. Eddie runs T-World Journal, which is now in its 8th issue, which has just been released. It is 8th, right? Good, didn't stuff that up. And also runs the Australian version of Hit and Run, a live screen printing company, which you can hire for any of your events. If you are after a T-shirt guru, then he is your man. So please put your hands together for Eddie.
Thanks, Saul. I am wearing Boywolf tonight, or today. My name is Eddie Zammit. My background is art direction and design and stuff like that. So hopefully I can guide you through the way that I've seen branding because I want to stay on point with brands. Sorry, I'll just grab some of my notes. Basically, this was initially created by an artist called 11, and he actually sent it on Instagram to me. And what was funny was that I looked at it, I loved it, obviously called him up and thanked him very much for doing just a character. But it was a while into it, and I then said to him, let's go back to that character for a second. This is the real Eddie. And I told him to dishevel the hair, put sunglasses on top, definitely the eyebrow, but also the unshaven look. I sometimes do the unshaven look. So it was kind of funny. I guess the point of this is that it's good to know who you actually are. And part of that is understanding it from a branding perspective as well. So I guess, I don't know, the 2015 definition of a brand is undefined, I think. I don't think there are any clear answers. And I think you need to basically, as a company or a business or an artist or a designer, just simply know who you are. So can anyone tell me whose logo this is? IBM. Obviously, the thing that I love about branding is that in 2015, we know an Apple as technology, as an iPhone, as a computer, but we don't know it as a fruit anymore. We do obviously know it as a fruit, but it's incredible to think when you say or talk about Apple on a day-to-day basis, you actually do think subliminally in your mind, well, wait a sec, what are we talking about here? Which I think is pretty funny. I used to work for this company a long, long time ago when I was going through uni. And I think it's incredible because it used to be near a beach. And so when you talk about shells on a beach, I always just think shell now. So I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with this brand. I guess the thing it brings up for me is, are you a Nike person or are you an Adidas person? I am absolutely a Nike person. Are you a Beatles person or are you a Rolling Stones person? I'm Rolling Stones. I guess what I love about what Nike has done over the years is that over time, it's not one particular thing that it's done. Not only has it released Nike Air Maxes, not only has it probably the best collaboration I think the world has ever seen, and collaboration gets tossed around these days, the collaboration between Nike and Michael Jordan, which will be very hard for any company to surpass, I think, because it's the legacy is there. I guess the thing that I hate about this is that from an art direction point of view, the thing that I get quite often asked is, hey, can you design me a logo that's sort of like Nike? And that's almost impossible to do, because it's taken, well, I guess the thing that strikes me is that, well, have you got 30 years and say $100 billion? And I guess the thing about Nike is that over time, it's all the small things that it's added up to one big thing. And I guess that's my point from a branding perspective. It's not just about the logo, it's about the overall graphic representation. I heard this like over a decade ago, and then I started thinking about all the things that I thought was strong about branding. Like, I think an excellent brand actually is Target, and I think back in the day, Target were doing some excellent advertising in terms of getting it out there. I think Absolute Vodka. These kind of brands, it's one thing, but it's not just the logo. So a lot of people perceive logos and brands to be the same thing. It's not. So it brings me to my T-World. So T-World is actually happened by accident in the name T-World because I actually wanted to call it T. I just want it to be simple. Like, my whole idea is that basically I'm obsessed and I'm very passionate about t-shirts. I have over 6,000 t-shirts in my wardrobe, and I've given away over 30,000 t-shirts over the last 8 years since beginning T-World. And I guess I just wanted to keep it simple. I wanted people to recognise it wherever they went, the letter T. And then obviously a lawyer told me you can't really copyright the letter T. And like, I did go into the argument, well, you know, Cadbury can copyright colour. Can you not do a letter? Like, there's one out of every 26 letters. So he said, basically come up with a name. And I said, okay, T-World. And T-World basically just encompasses the world of t-shirts. It's like that. It's as simple as that. So in doing art direction for a whole bunch of different people and clients over the years, I've learnt a term that I thought initially was a bit wanky, to be honest, and that was brand values. And every decision I make for T-World is based on these three things: longevity, originality, and quality. In terms of longevity, and it will be shown in some of the examples that I'll show you today, is I think it's really important just not to stay by your word, but then in 10 years' time, let's see where that person is. And I'm really a big fan of brands that have been able to maintain the longevity. Like, I'm a huge fan of Stussy. I'm a huge fan of these brands. Like, I started probably my t-shirt thing through a brand called Fresh Jive, and it started in 1989, but back then it was more into rave gear and stuff like that, but it sort of changed over time. The world was quite big then, but today the world is really small. Like, you could Instagram anyone in seconds, and everything has changed now. Everything is so fast. Originality. Well, Nicole Reed is probably a prime example on how I've been able to achieve originality. I've, in the late 90s and early 90s, I would just collect the most weird things, like swing tickets and stickers, and my mum and my dad would give me articles just on t-shirts. I had no idea what I was doing, but after a period of time, I realised I had this archive that didn't really exist on the internet. And I thought, well, that's pretty amazing, to see all this stuff. And I guess I was looking at all of this stuff, and I was thinking, well, I actually know the stories that have been told, so let's try to do stories that haven't been told. So Nicole from an originality point of view, Nicole quite often gets sent around to different places and to meet different people and to photograph them originally. So rather than get a press release and get their photo that they provide, I pride T-World on the originality side of things. So Nicole's photographed over I would say over 150, but it would easily be over 100 over the last 8 years since T-World's begun, and it's definitely been a great thing for myself. And quality, like, I spend way too many hours doing what I do. There is no way I should be spending as much time as I do on this particular project, but if I'm going to, and I do, I expect a quality outcome, and quality comes down to everything. I spent 10 days in Singapore, probably maybe a month ago or a month and a half ago, and I was woken up every hour and a half over that 10-day period to press check the issue that is currently here. And it was good. Like, I really wanted to see the whole process through from the beginning to the start. What was funny is this particular issue is the hardest issue I've absolutely completed. But I was speaking to the sub-editor, and we were saying at the start, oh, this one's going to be easy, this one's about the future and stuff like that. 3 years later. Oh my God. And again, it came down to quality. Like, I just don't want to release anything that you don't need to release. Like, there's so much trash out there. You want to make it, you want to provide a product that has quality. So I guess T-World as a brand is funny. The industry would say that I'm creating a business-to-business idea, and I don't really think that. Like, but essentially it is. T-World is a brand about brands, and I guess that's the interesting thing. I'm not sure if people are aware of that or not. I guess with the brands that I choose, the brands aren't coming to me. I'm going to them. So I'm thinking these people are top shelf. Like, they're the best it can be. So I was born in 1974, which makes me 40 last year. And I grew up with a diet of Star Wars, as most guys would, Lego, The Muppet Show, but the Muppet Show led back into Sesame Street. And I think that Sesame Street as a brand is incredible. And one thing that doesn't get talked about brands is psychology. And psychology, if you have a think about the characters, if I say Ernie, you think, oh yeah, he's the funny character, orange head, stuff like that. He's always making jokes. You think Bert, well, it was the yellow oblongy head thing, and he always is doing something boring. And I think that attributes to how strong Sesame Street is a brand. So I approached Sesame Street 2 years before this actually happened, and we did the 40th anniversary collaboration with them, where I invited artists to actually go head-to-head with each of the Muppets that I chose. Now, I didn't choose Elmo, and as you can see, I went on set, and like, the funniest thing is, like, in this picture with Elmo, Elmo is basically saying, like, why didn't you choose me? Like, because there's an area in Sesame Street, a 20-metre radius, where the puppeteers have to be the character. So it's hilarious. I was in there the whole time. I didn't want to speak to normal people. And like, then basically, Elmo came up to me and said, why didn't you choose me? And I just said to Elmo, like, you're just too popular. Like, and like, I really wanted to get the old school characters, because obviously it was the 40th anniversary. I chose the Count over Elmo. Now, Sesame Workshop gave me a statistics thing. You know, if you go for the Count, you're not going to sell as many issues. But if you go for Elmo, everyone will love it. And I just wanted to stay true to what I thought Sesame Street was about. And I figured, well, Count's been there since day dot, so he deserves it. Sometimes funny things happen, and this is just something that did happen, was because I had Nicole on set, and actually it was about a 30-degree day, so Nicole was craving to get outside in the sunlight. And we were there for quite a long time, so the photo was done on the left by Nicole. And when the presidential election happened recently, like, I don't even know how long ago, about a year ago, I got hit up by so many of my American friends going, they've made a meme about you. That was kind of funny. So Mitt Romney was trying to take Big Bird down, and that was the meme that went around. So other projects that I've been involved with from a T-World perspective, this was through Ambush Gallery up in Sydney, and this was to show the world of T-shirts, literally the world of T-shirts. So the people I chose ran brands in particular cities, like cities that I thought, were doing interesting and innovative things. So we created a world of T-shirts, and this is actually created from T-shirts from my collection, so I had to ruin them to get to that point, but I thought it would be cool to actually do, and it was definitely tough, but Moth Design helped put it all together, which was great. 2011, I did Outpost Project. So Outpost Project had a visitation of over 86,000 people. And visitation, I hate that word, visitation, but people are interested in it. And it wasn't just this project. KidZoom, Lister, Everfresh, countless of graffiti artists were doing stuff on this island for Outpost. So I figured I was the only one actually doing a product, and I actually thought that was a problem, but I thought that at the same time was a challenge, because how can you compete against art, really? And what I'm doing is promoting other brands and other labels and other artists and stuff like that. So I had to work like crazy to get it to an expectation from my perspective. So this is down from ground level, where you walk through, and I asked everyone, I'm obsessed about the future. So rather than knowing about the past, I want to know more about the future. I want to know what kind of stuff people are going to be wearing in 2020. So I went to all the creative leaders. Over maybe 15 years, I've been networking my ass off, and I don't even realise I'm doing it. When I'm out in a social scenario, it's always about finding out stuff, and I get then introduced to another person, and then they start talking to me. So on the set of Sesame Street, Carol Spinney's wife I ended up talking to. I didn't know it was her. And then she said, you sound like you're from Australia. And I've gone, yeah, I've got that lazy voice, type thing. And then she said, my husband's been in Melbourne. And then we realised that he'd been king of Moomba in the early 80s. But then she explained that Carol Spinney was actually an illustrator outside of being Big Bird. And that Christmas, I got back to Australia, and he'd sent me 10 crew T-shirts, and only Carol Spinney was able to do those crew T-shirts. He's done it for every year Sesame Street's existed, which is pretty incredible. That was the end outcome. I call this my walk-in wardrobe. My mum came to the island. I thought it was very funny, because she just randomly came and checked it out. And the first thing she told me was, well, you've convinced someone to hold your T-shirts for 5 weeks. Said it's a bit more than that, but it was kind of funny. So as a brand of brands, I've gone and collaborated with people that I really love. I'm a huge fan of Brooklyn-based Mishka, so I met Greg and Mikhail in 2007, and I just love their aesthetics. It's crazy, it's kind of insane. If you grew up in the 80s, it's all about either porn, it's either about toys, it's about all the crazy loud 80s stuff, and I loved it. Also, Greg owns the largest collection of Mr. T dolls in the world, so we figured T and Mr. T, it'd be a good one to do. So I had James Gerrat, who's a really underrated Sydney-based artist, do the work for us, and we did a launch over in their store. So some of the collaborations I've done are small, and some of them are large. So I have been working with Vivid Sydney for the last 3 years. First year we brought out Threadless, and Threadless is a great company where basically they've been doing stuff since 2000, so they were talking about the business side of what they do from a T-shirt perspective. Second year was Johnny Cupcakes, and so we wanted to go one step further and create an actual shop. So I knew so much about his brand that he didn't actually have to do anything. So it was more about surpassing his expectations. So when a brand entrusts me to do something, I want to go to the next par of what they're expecting. Johnny walked in and he said to me, that he thought it was better than his London store, which he'd spent a lot of money on, and he could not believe that he just has to walk in and it's there. Like, I had to call up a fridge guy, and I was saying to the fridge guy, hey, we don't need the fridge to actually work. We just want it for a display thing, and we need a lock on it as well. And the fridge person said, so you want to get a fridge that doesn't work? Why do you need the fridge? And so it was kind of funny. I worked with illustrator Travis Price to realise a lot of the look. These are some of the designs he did, and you can see, like, I've just put the T-World mark on each one of them. It was funny, the kangaroo was quite a battle with Johnny because he wanted to do Crocodile Dundee, and from an Australian point of view, we needed to come up with something a little cooler. But I wanted to know why he was so into the Crocodile Dundee idea, and it was more about colour, so I gave him colour. And it was kind of funny because it's my little gag that Australia, in the end, beat America. So this is like interacting with the fans. It was quite amazing. After he spoke at Vivid, over 200, 300 people were lining up, which is kind of a rare thing in Australia. Like, it's definitely part of the American culture. So, I've been friends with Joshy D, who runs Rebel 8, for quite a few years now, and I've been working on getting him out here. And to be honest, Rebel 8 is one part business and one part art. And the art is created predominantly by Mike Giant, who's the superstar artist. But actually, I wasn't so concerned about Mike Giant as opposed to Joshy. And one thing that I try to do is find out what they have and they haven't done. And Joshy had never ever publicly spoke. And I really wanted, I've always had such good conversations with him. I thought, why has no one asked you? Like, this is so weird. And I asked him to be part of Vivid. And we did a tour in Melbourne and a tour in Sydney. And again, the T-World logo is there. It's a rare thing for Rebel 8, actually, because Rebel 8 have never put a brand on their T-shirt before. So it's also, like, networking is also about the idea of trust as well from a brand. They need to be able to trust you with their aesthetic and the look. T-shirts being produced, so we produced them here in Australia, as opposed to getting them printed over in America and then bringing them over here, saved on shipping, saved on that. But from Joshy's perspective, he had to put a lot of trust into what I was doing. This is some of the images for a combination of Vivid and from Melbourne as well. That was pretty awesome. It was Joshy's idea to project the Rebel 8 logo on a building, and that was opposite the venue we had it at, which was last June. And so then now that probably leads me into this one where, this is funny, where we're talking about branding, and T-World's a brand about brands, and now I'm working with Rebel 8 to do their brand book. So basically they're wanting me to do the story of Rebel 8, and to explain it to other people. So from a retail perspective, and to not only their fans, but to also grow and see where the brand can go outside of their safety zone, which is America. And it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing for me if I do something in America. Are people going to rock up? I don't know. But it's always good to promote it, and never ever assume people know exactly what you do. I still find that I need to explain that T-World is the world's only T-shirt journal. I constantly say that. I won't stop saying that because it is, but it's also a way of explaining partly what it's about. So I approached Mambo, and Mambo, obviously an institution in Australia, but I actually approached Mambo, and then I wanted to do a project with the NGV because I realised that they were turning 30 years, so we did that. But then they landed me into doing a DC project. So they did a collaboration with DC Comics, so I worked with the different artists and the logo, and we created it like that. This is some of the stuff from Mambo. I'll hurry along. I can feel the Toby presence going, the timing and stuff like that. The Mambo, this is currently on at the NGV. So if you go to the NGV studio, you can have a look at 30 years of Mambo Graphics, and hands down, they are one of the most unique brands in the world from an artist perspective. Like, they've been doing it since 1984, and what is incredible about Mambo is Dare Jennings, and Dare Jennings has gone on since to create Deus Ex Machina, which is equally as relevant and so hard to produce two brands in a lifetime that will stay with us all. And I think what's incredible is that room, where the black and white room, that's over 150 artists represented, which they had to sign a contract for. And it shows how many ideas there are. And the thing that I loved about Mambo back in the day was there was no logo. Every artist interpreted it in their own way, which I think back then is incredible. Like, as a designer, you'd be looking at it going, yeah, okay, we're doing stuff for Mambo. Can you send us the style guide? We don't have a style guide. Like, do whatever you want. Which leads me into my project, which is T-World. This is a constantly ongoing project that I will do until the day that I die. So this one is all about the future of t-shirt graphics. It contains over 7 years of content. So the content within this issue can't be possible without all the people that I've met along the way. And I'm not going to meet everyone in 1 month. I'm not going to meet everyone in 2 months. Like, there's limited time to travel and, earn money and all of that kind of stuff. So it's time, and I've got as much patience in the world. Like, you just have to do it when you can, but maintain the quality, which is what I do. I recently went to LA. I was in LA for exactly 5 days, and I networked my ass off. There's people in here, Sean Stussy, Shepard Ferry, Jeff Staple, Rebel 8. But, genuinely, I love what I do. I honestly love what I do, and that doesn't even make it work for me. Like, I meet up, these guys are friends, and it's so good to catch up with them to see what they're doing and how they're evolving. And that's inspiring to me. These are some of the layouts from the issue. So just to take you through some of the content, I've asked in this particular section, I call it T-shirts anecdotes, and I've asked the exact same question to everyone. But what's funny is that some of them contradict each other, which is even funnier because, take your own thing out of that. There is not one right answer. It doesn't matter if you're the biggest company in the world, you could be wrong. Then I've done T-shirt leaders. So an example, the one with Eric Brunetti, took over 100 emails back and forth to do. The one with Ben Brown, I got him to illustrate his own skull, which, if you know his work, it's pretty funny. Glenn Jones, Sean Stussy, Jim Phillips. The Screaming Hand this year celebrates 30 years, which, if you look at the content, it goes back to the brand values: quality, longevity, and originality. So this was a section on opinions. So a lot of people might know Roan in Melbourne, but do people really know that he earned his bread and butter doing what he does as the t-shirt guy? Also, Beastman, how many collaborations can he do? How does he maintain quality with all of those guys? Natalie Wood, one of the original designers for Dangerfield, but also the sister of Woody from Sneaker Freaker, and Leah McSweeney on being sued for $10 million through a skate company called Supreme. So, just to wrap it up, a brand is more of a reputation formed over years through consistent interactions. That is the only way I can describe what a brand actually is, where it's not one thing. Oh my God, I just got a collaboration with Nike. That's never going to make you as a brand. It's all of the small things that come in between. So these are identities that we've done in the last, I would say, 8 months for different artists, different companies, and different brands. So I just wanted to talk about what the final thing, the final thing is, so I've just released, I've been doing a design studio for quite a while, but I actually have put it all under T-World. So as far as the taxman goes, it's all under T-World. But I'm giving it an identity this year, and it really started off with this. This was a desk that my dad made in 1980, and I love this desk. I actually grew up with the colours of red and blue, and that's probably why I'm so insane. But like, I love this desk, and I've only ever had 5 desks. And for me, the desk represents a symbol of working and doing all of that. So I've done my best work at the desk. And so created this logo. If you look in the negative space, you can see a 7 and a 4. Like, I know it's abstract, but you can see a 7 and a 4. And that was the year I was born. So under a lot of the design stuff, that's what I'll be putting it under this year. That's my details. Branding, branding, branding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eddie. Our second speaker for this afternoon is Marian Machismo. A trained fine artist, Marian has the ability of merging fine art and illustration in a way that I haven't seen before. Her use of patterns and intricate designs, along with her flash imagery and sense of humour, creates a personality and brand I just can't get enough of. So please put your hands together and welcome Marian.
Okay. Today you're going to hear my spirit animal, Saul Attack, talk about Boywolf, the incomparably talented Matthew Dunn talk about artistic branding, and you've just heard the man and legend Eddie Zammit talk about T-World. For the next 10 minutes, however, you'll hear me mumble and muse over what I have learned through my own journey. There will be puns, it will be boring, and you'll be counting down the seconds to break time. But without intending to, I will talk fast and I'll be over before you know it. So please be kind and we'll get through this together. I'm Marian Machismo. I'm an artist, an illustrator, a writer, a queer activist, a dyslexic nerd, and a homeless romantic. But today I'm here as an ambassador for my personal brand, me. Yes, nice. It's taken a long time for me to come on board with the idea of branding. I've fought against it, I've attempted to ignore it, I've allowed others to control it, but in the end I've accepted it. The greatest thing you can do for yourself and for your career is to take ownership for and of your brand. This includes not only your artistic output, but your appearance, your workspace, and your environment. It was a shock to be asked to speak up here today alongside people that I admire, that I love, and to be honest, that I'm quietly fearful of. These men are on point, they carry a wealth of knowledge, they are funny, they are personable, and they are talented, but overall they are brands that are not only successful but honest. Your brand has a personality, as do you, and a successful brand will merge these together. From the drunken selfie to the studio shoot, you are your brand's greatest representative, and therefore you should promote yourself accordingly. Decide on what your brand represents and represent it. Building a brand online is all about content. Post only what you honestly believe in and be prepared to back it up. Be micro-ambitious in your endeavors. Every one of us in this room has a mobile portfolio, an interactive business card that can carry more information than we give it credit for. From the color scheme to the content, these are active decisions that you use to promote yourself. When someone asks you what you do, show them. Don't hide behind false niceties. Pull out your phone and show them. Be proud of who you are and where you are, and others will do the same. Allow people to surprise you. Forget taking over the internet in one night. It's not going to happen. Work on social media sites you have chosen and allow them to work for you. Forget the big picture and focus on the handheld one. During his UWA speech, Tim Minchin drew a metaphor linking happiness to an orgasm. To take his lead and expand on this, I'd like to draw on the idea that success, moreover than happiness, is like an orgasm. The more you think and dwell on it, the less likely it will happen. That is not to say that you should ignore it and turn to prostitution in search of success, but you'll find yourself in some sticky situations and a whole lot further from your goals. Define yourself by what you love. We have a tendency to define ourselves in opposition to stuff. As artists, we find our voice not only through the acquisition of knowledge, of studies of masters, and great toil about practice and critique of others, over pots and hand-rolled cigarettes. We recoil at comparison against our peers and are offended when this comparison heeds uncomfortable connections. Express your passion for things that you love. Don't deny the sometimes painfully obvious comparison of your work against others, as this will happen. It is unavoidable and it is a great opportunity for growth. See their sometimes poor rendering of your personal brand as a compliment of form. Admit and be proud of your influences as those trying on your brand are of you. I, like every 15-year-old girl in the late 90s, cut my hair that would in the future be referenced to as a Rachel. When Drew adopted the pixie cut, as did I. When Homer doed, I ate butt shorts. I longed for new Nikes, new Skechers, Reebok pumps, and the love of one Taylor Hanson. And when I started to create, I mimicked my personal heroes. Keith, Jean-Michel, Andy, Sarah, Sophie, Francesca, and Roy. And in doing so, I wore sneakers, glasses, eggs, cardigans, sadness, and dots. And in taking nothing away from my heroes, I showed the success of their branding and its ability to not only be noticed, but also adopted. Define yourself by what you love and allow others to do the same, as their acknowledgement can only bolster your brand and strengthen its success. Acknowledge the micro picture. Everything you do makes up your brand. This can be both positive and negative. Thankfully, it can also be controlled. We cannot force people to buy our products. We cannot force them to read our blogs or like our art, no more than we can force them to like us as people. We can, however, control how we are perceived, the things we post online, and the dialogue that we create. Now more than ever, your career as an artist can rise and fall within the micro picture. Your Instagram alone stands as your brand's online mood board. The key points that make up your brand, your values, attitude, passion, and purpose will be found in the content. And it is here that you create your first impression, so make it count. Acknowledge your target audience and cater to their needs. If you want your work to be viewed as current, you in turn need to adopt trends. Furthermore, you need to create them. If you want your work to be viewed at all, you need to ascribe to the platforms that are in trend. If MySpace is your jam, then create an Instagram and feed it. You can be the best artist in the world, but if you want your work to be viewed, then you need to allow this to happen. More than allow it, you must foster it. Be prideful of your media, promote your brand and your work. And work. Work more than anyone else and show your work online, not just the finished product, but the deviations and working drawings. And get a feel, This allows people to see your process and get a feel for who you are. Be prideful of your successes and the success of your peers. Promote others, promote yourself. Dress for the job you want and be who you wish you were. Wear what you wish you could, and mostly define yourself by what you love. Define your brand by who you are, and in turn adopt the persona that you create. Go to exhibition openings. Even if you're tired, even if you don't know the artist, support them. Support your community and be active in it. Get to know your peers and talk to them about their strengths. Support their endeavors and they will in turn support yours. Be a teacher, especially if you're not, then be a teacher. Allow others to learn from your mistakes and help them grow and achieve. Allow your brand to be recognized as one that supports others. Be nice to people. You never know who they will be and how you may need them in the future. Be nice purely for being nice. Be nice because you are and because it's the right thing to do, and never allow your personal brand to be sullied by your own fears, by put-downs and payouts, by others, or by yourself. So my speech was really fast, so thank you for indulging me. Follow me on Instagram, invite me to your exhibition openings. Starting out in this industry can be lonely and it can feel scary, but you're not alone. There's a community waiting to adopt you. Support them and feel their support in turn. Collect, collaborate, converse, and connect. Promote your brand, believe in your brand, be your brand, and the rest will follow.
So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Matthew Dunn, our third speaker. Along with being an extremely talented digital illustrator, Matthew has developed one of his characters, Leroy, into a brand of its own, making him the perfect for this talk and share some advice with you all. Please welcome Matthew Dunn.
Hi, how you doing? I don't do this thing very often, so I'm going to charge through it and try my best not to fuck it up. So let's go. Right. This is Leroy. He first appeared in a comic that I did called Lonely Monsters, and initially was going to be killed off in the first 4 pages. But I enjoyed working on the character so much, and I've always loved drawing gas masks so much that he just hung around and then has basically dominated my career ever since. And so when it came to starting to develop a brand, I thought, well, I need a visual brand, which is what I'm going to really focus on today. And I'm not someone that likes getting their photo taken or posts photos of themselves, to the point where you might think I subscribe to the theory that getting your photo taken steals your soul. So it very rarely happens, except for things like today. So I wanted to have something that was an extension of me, which is very much what Leroy is. In a way, he's sort of the mouthpiece for me, who can speak in ways that I'm too scared to speak. And so that's Leroy. And so I settled on him because my first thought was skulls, because I love drawing skulls, but a lot of people love drawing skulls. They appear in a lot of different types of branding, and gas masks, you still see them around a lot, but not as heavily. And originally, Leroy appeared in a striped zip-up hoodie, which after drawing him in a comic, I discovered was one of the most annoying things to draw in the world. So as soon as I settled on developing the brand of Leroy, I got rid of that striped hoodie and I just went straight for the orange. Now originally I was going to go with a really bright red. One of the things you'll find with the red from the Redbubble, it's a very clever shade of red because it's just slightly muted enough that it pops online and looks really good. Whereas when I was originally going with Leroy, I didn't think about that stuff much until I started viewing colours online to see how they worked. And if you get a bright red online, looking at it on a monitor, you'll know it looks terrible. And so I went with orange, because that's always been one of my favourite colours. And for the mask, a muted blue. So I basically set up a twin tone colour effect that was a nice contrast, and those two colours just permeate a lot of what I do. And here are a few examples with Leroy. That image, Let's Talk More Art, was one I did after a particularly futile argument with someone on social media. And I decided just not to spend as much time on social media after that. And with Leroy, using a character as a brand, the advantage of that is that you can use them across any platform. I can have him in comics. I've got him on over 250 t-shirts these days, which is a little bit ridiculous. But skateboards, I've had an exhibition totally dedicated to that character. And as I've focused more and more using that character over the years, I think people who know the character and know me just find it hard to separate the two in a lot of ways, which I'm more than happy with in a way. But if you can develop a brand that's flexible, then it really opens up so many more avenues to you. Like from here you can see there's a whole bunch of different images that I produced. Some of these were for large prints, t-shirts, posters, stickers. And while Leroy isn't completely visible within all of them, you know it's him, because there's the orange of the hoodie on the image where he's walking down the road. In the top, there's Leroy really, all you can see is his shoes, but you can see the mask, so you know it's him. And the fun part of developing this character through so many different avenues is that I've been able to create a story and just a character of Leroy without really having to put too much thought into it and just let it evolve naturally. And that's led to just this constant evolution of the character that I find myself getting more and more fascinated with and looking at different ways that I can use him. And but it's also important when you do develop a visual image to really represent you as an artist, that it's something that can also evolve with your style. Because I initially started off doing a lot of hyper-detailed pen work, which I still love and return to sometimes, but I also enjoyed going into more slightly abstract pen work and brush work, and with some things that doesn't really suit, but I've found with the character of Leroy and the gas mask, especially as an image, you can very much use it in any capacity and it can work really well for you. But now one of the fun things that you can do once you are establishing your brand is you don't have to keep it for yourself. Because if you're collaborating with different people on different projects, it's fun to try and sort of just sneak your creations into their world. I initially started doing with this band called Cripple Black Phoenix, and I was doing a lot of album designs for them, a lot of tour posters, tour t-shirts, and I just slowly started sneaking Leroy into the backgrounds of scenes, and a few people picked up on that and saw that. And so then when I was asked to do the art for this particular live album, the label just said to me, do whatever you want. And so I basically made it a Leroy triple album. As you can see, he's standing on a rooftop waving a flag. He came as a bonus print with the album. He's on every sleeve. And initially I wasn't sure what the reaction would be, but the label really enjoyed it. The band got a kick out of it. But the biggest surprise from that was the amount of extra traffic that it drove through to check out me and my art. And it's just really invaluable when you are able to spread your brand around a bit more in that regard. That because, as I said, very few people know sort of me and what I look like. They know me as Leroy. And it just opens up those avenues in a very big way. I wanted to talk a bit though about protecting your visual brand and the pros and cons of policing that, when you should go after it and to stop it, and when it's best to just let it go. If anyone who goes online, you'll know that people just steal things left, right and centre, and so I became quite obsessive after a while with doing reverse image searches on my artwork to find places where it was being used. First thing I would suggest is never do this on a Sunday night or a Monday morning, because it just ruins your week, because it can be really depressing. And I used to do it to the degree where I would spend an entire day searching out my own art, and it would just drive me crazy. So now I have 2 hours in the middle of the week. I'll just do a reverse image search on my most popular images, and then I'll track them down and decide what should be done with them. Internet being what it is, quite often once your sort of brand does get out there, people start to adopt it themselves. And especially on places like SoundCloud and YouTube, and especially with artwork that has a musical association to it, it just appears so much on people's albums, digital albums, avatars and things like that. Now, it's basically up to you how strict you want to go when you're protecting your visuals and your brand. For me, it's a case of if someone's not profiting from it directly and what they're doing I think is pretty cool, then I'll just leave it, because I think it's actually kind of cool and it gets my work into different sets of eyes that I might not be reaching myself. But every now and then you'll stumble across it in avenues where you think, I probably should deal with this. And one of those for me was I did a reverse image search and I stumbled across one of my images being used on an American website for a right-wing militia group. And initially I thought, oh, well, I'm going to send a DMCA takedown notice to these people straight away. And then I started looking around the website and I thought, these people kind of scare me. So maybe I'll just watch it and see what they're doing and what they're doing with the image. And thankfully the image disappeared off the website 1 week later. But I still go back to that website every now and then just to make sure it's not reappearing. But even if it did, I don't know what I'd do, because I don't really want to get militia groups offside. So sometimes you do just need to let things slide. But one that I did find, and that I follow almost religiously now, is an internet hacker known as Virus Noir. And I originally found out about him because someone sent me a link to a video from an Israeli TV news program. And I pressed play on the video, and in the background was Leroy. And I thought, what's going on? And it turns out that this guy had adopted my most popular image of Leroy to use as his logo. And in the last few years has been going around hacking various government websites, big businesses, and leaving Leroy in place of the content that should be there. And this was actually a really tricky one, because similar to militia groups, I don't want to piss off hackers because I've got my own websites that I wouldn't want people going after. But I think to a degree, this one I definitely wasn't as scared of because I thought, well, the things that he's doing I kind of approve of. So maybe I should just not get involved and leave it alone and see what happens. But unfortunately, a few other hackers then picked up that same image, and now there's a group of about 12 of them that go around hitting various websites. And it really is that situation where you sort of have to work out the pros and cons of dealing with it or not. And I reached the point where I thought, well, I'll just leave it because I wouldn't want to deal with the negative impacts of trying to crack down on it too much. And even though it is a weird way to get the brand out there, it does get the brand out there. And I've had people buy this design on a t-shirt who told me they saw it via these moments. So it's free advertising basically. And so with these characters and these creations, if you can find a way to develop a visual that represents you and your personality and your art, it can be hard to find just one thing and really refine it. I think in a lot of ways I was lucky with this character because he initially was just me in a mask basically. And I've been able to evolve him in many different ways. But focusing on just developing that visual brand for yourself and one that you can manipulate and use in different ways. And just don't do a gas mask in a yellow hood and an orange hoodie if you can avoid it. And this is the most recent Leroy image that I've done. And I thought I'd use an example just to basically let you know that it's all available on t-shirts and prints at Redbubble at this point in time. And it's just now marks what I believe is the 5-year anniversary of my creation of the character. And it just shows that sort of remaining with that muted blue mask. I dropped the hoodie, but he's got an orange flannel, so the orange is still there. And it's just allowed me to keep the character for what it is, that instantly recognisable brand. And I think after having spent the last few years working on a lot of other people's projects and making a lot of other people's projects come to fruition, this was sort of me reclaiming my own brand for myself and taking it out of other people's hands and just sort of standing my ground of this is Leroy, this is me, this is my art, and I've got plans for what I want to do with it from here. But at the same time, none of those plans are concrete and you never know what's going to happen. And an example of that is that once I decided I'm going to do a new Leroy comic, it's been far too long, I'm not going to do just t-shirts anymore. Some other comic projects came up that have taken me away from Leroy, but one of them I'm able to sneak the character back into that comic yet again. So it's just, I guess, another representation of the flexibility of the character where I can keep shoehorning him into everything that I get involved with, and in a way that people seem to be quite happy with. And not everyone does character-based art, I can appreciate that, but there are very numerous ways in which you can just develop that flexible brand for yourself. And it takes time to make it concrete and really decide what you want it to be. And at the same time, you can change it at any point, especially in this case where you're developing multiple facets of it. I can do a lot of things now. I've had breaks from not using Leroy as my central brand at all, but retained the orange and blue, which still make it recognisable, especially online, because you always want to have it as your avatar wherever you are online. And I can have any character or any art with that orange and blue, and people will still recognise it. So the importance of that colour, it is something that is really quite powerful in that visual sense. And I feel like I'm kind of mumbling at this point, so I think I'll wrap it up. Thank you.
I feel as though there isn't much I can say about our next speaker that will prepare you for what's in store. A clothing brand with a massive personality, I'm thrilled to introduce you to the man behind Boywolf, Saul Attack. Please make him feel welcome.
Okay. I did prepare probably about a 40-minute speech. And after seeing everyone else's speeches, I realized, is that working properly? Hello? I'm gonna go by the slides and just kind of just leg it a bit because I think it's too much information. Boywolf, well, first of all, actually, thank you Redbubble, actually, for putting this on. They've done an amazing thing for the creative community. Eddie, Marian, Matthew, awesome to hear you guys' perspectives on branding and everything that you guys do. And Toby, I did promise to keep this PG-13. I promise you, don't worry. No nudity, no drug references. We're good. I'm Saul Attack. I moved to Melbourne about 5 years ago from New York. 4 years. I don't count the first year. The first year was just a disaster. It was a one-year party. It was awesome. I met a lot of these people here today, actually, which helped me get Boywolf started. You know, just having a good time, meeting people, networking. Unofficially, Boywolf dates back to about 2007. It was just, I guess, a creative outlet for me and some of my friends. And, you know, we didn't have a direction. We didn't really define what we were doing. We were just having a good time. And it got to a point where, I guess, to take the brand to the next level, we had to figure out what we were actually trying to achieve with it. And that's when, I guess, we looked at what inspired us. I looked at, you know, I grew up in the 90s in New York, so I looked at, like, you know, the hip-hop culture, the fashion guys were doing back then. I don't know if you guys like old Echo stuff, you know, like FUBU, this guy, yeah. And that along with, you know, skate culture, even punk rock, that inspired a lot of what Boywolf was. And you took that all together, and I guess we embodied it with the Boywolf, which I'd like to think is a personification of myself and the mischievous attitude I have. It is a little bit, but you're filming, so I'm not going to get too deep into it because I don't, yeah, my parents will watch this at some point, and I don't want to, you know, we won't go there. But yeah, look, after some messing around, we came up with a character, we gave him a name, we gave him an attitude, and that's kind of where Boywolf really began. We never really took it too seriously until I moved to Melbourne, and the guys I used to work with kind of pulled out. They got all corporate, 9 to 5, working for the bank. And I was just still being, you know, Peter Pan, nothing, never growing up. Which brings me to my next thing. Never grown up is the biggest part of Boywolf. And not grow up, because you do grow up and you'll die and maybe your family will burn you one day, I don't know. But you don't have to be a grown-up. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be a grown-up. You can live that attitude your whole life. It doesn't really matter. So we have fun with it. Hold on a sec. Where am I? Okay. So I put together a little bit of some pictures of some t-shirts we've done over the years, just as a look at, like an overall look at Boywolf, what we've achieved, I guess. We've worked with some amazing artists, and we've come a long way. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to skip through a bunch of stuff I don't need to say. That's gone. All right, so yeah, Boywolf is rooted, I guess, in a younger identity of myself. I look at branding and I go, oh yeah, you can pretend to be a brand, but if you live it, it's so much more natural. So all this social media stuff, all this stuff we put out there, it comes quite naturally to me. I don't scheme, I don't plan. I put it out there. If you take it, that's awesome. If you don't, whatever. You don't get it. That's cool. But it makes it a lot easier for me. It makes it more natural. And I think it actually makes it easier for people to connect on a personal level, because it's like your idiot drunk friend. You've been there for all the stories. You've watched them grow up. You can feel what they feel, and you kind of, and that's not a very good example, actually. It's like your friend. It's like your friend. Just drop the idiot drunk thing. It's like your friend. You're there for them. You've grown up with them. So as they evolve, because the brand does evolve, you can connect with it. You can feel comfortable with it. You know where it's going. You know what to expect. Even though we like to mix it up a little bit, you kind of know where we're going with it. Like, there's a satirical aspect to it. I love to make fun of people. I love to get in trouble. So that's really where it's rooted in. And we'll have a look at, so Boywolf started. Can you guys see the inspiration around the first one? Astro Boy, my favorite cartoon growing up. And after we realized we couldn't really get away with using Astro Boy like that, like some hood Astro Boy, we played around, and then it became the Boywolf that it is today. You know, and I'm going to break Boywolf down into a few elements, you know, the things that make it important to me, I guess. And the first element of Boywolf is just the color scheme. I mean, these are things, along with obviously typography and things that can help perpetuate a brand. Orange and blue is relevant to me. I grew up in New York, Mets, Knicks. The original New York City flag is orange and blue and white, but this means something to me. So there's a nostalgic value to it, but it's also something that I think people have come to realize is part of Boywolf. Because there's orange on everything. So even we get our own, everything done custom, orange. There's got to be orange in it. We don't mess around. The teeth, the wolf smile, the wolfy smile is something that has blown up, and I'm so happy about seeing people, wearing bandanas and wearing the smile and having fun with it, especially on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, if you get a bandana, take a picture. I'll see it. I want to see that, and it makes me happy because people, I guess, are living it the same way that I live it. It makes feeling the same way it makes me feel happy about what we're trying to achieve with it. The teeth has evolved into a few other things. So we have this, I call it the bite stripe. It's basically the teeth. It's a W. It's something we don't use a lot. It's more for things that we don't want to fully brand. Like if we're taking a stab at someone or messing with some other brand or things like that, we'll subtly include it. It's there. We're there. The presence is there, but we don't put our name on it always. And this is actually something we're doing going forward, which I'm really excited about. So we're doing a little bit of sportswear, like athletic sportswear, that'll have the bite stripes through it. Very excited about it. Stay in the loop. And then, all right, so basically, this is a picture of this is a stock picture. I love it. And what I've done is I've put together just some stuff I just screen grabbed. Just people living that smile the same way I want to live it, make it happy like that. And then my favorite one, actually, if you look at the top, my friend Luke stabbed himself. I don't know, can you see that one? And he sends me a picture he drew a wolfie. So yeah, you know what? He sees the wound and he thinks, that could be that smile, I don't know. That's kind of funny. We did some girls' panties. I don't know. Yeah, over there. That's kind of cool to see popping up on Instagram. Why not? And then Wolfie himself, it's been a great way of actually collaborating and building. And so we've worked with some amazing artists over the years. We've done some great projects. And every time we reinvent Wolfie, I mean, obviously you can see that there's not there's the standard elements of Wolfie, but we always reinvent it. There's a few actually, old Cholo Wolf, that's going to be a new one. A little bit of a teaser. Yeah, we'll get to it. You guys pay attention. You'll see it coming. And then basically, look, all up, you have your branding elements. But for what I'm talking about, the biggest thing for us has been actually building a community around the brand. So in the same way that what Redbubble is doing today and helping bring together a creative community and perpetuate some growth, having a community around what you believe in is so important. And it's been the biggest element of our branding. So, we open up our warehouse all the time to doing events and having fun and having parties or just having people come by and hang out. And yeah, it's been the best way of, I guess, opening up our world of what we believe in, what I believe in, to the greater community of people that have a bit of an interest in what we're trying to do. And these pictures were just taken in and around our Richmond warehouse. If you guys are in Richmond, if any of you in Richmond, you can email me. If you're in the neighborhood, email me. I'll get it. We'll have a look. Pop in, say what up. Don't be shy. You, especially you. Yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping through a lot. There was a lot of irrelevant stuff that I was thinking, I got to get serious about branding, and I did all this research. But in doing all that research, I actually uncovered something, guys. I uncovered something that nobody's seen in the world before. This has nothing to do with Boywolf. This is something that I'm actually, there's going to be some skeptics in the audience. But I've uncovered something that I think clearly links the Illuminati to lizard people from the center of the world to high-end fashion brands. Okay? I'll feed you, little bird, don't worry. Now look, I've fabricated this graph here. So the upticks, and I'm not saying they are, but I'm not saying they aren't, associated to rare weather anomalies, perhaps, or government-structured agendas. But there's a chance that if this is true, it explains my next fake graph. That These handbag, specifically handbag luxury brands, are connected to a society of lizard people that clearly here, if you pay attention to this graph that I made, you can see that the resemblance of handbags, lizard people handbags themselves as the designers, equals profit growth for that brand. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not saying it does. You make the decision. Do the research. I'm serious about this. I'm nervous. World takeover shit, okay? Okay, now, I love Redbubble. I think what they're doing is fantastic. I decided to explore Redbubble a little bit. There's a few things I like what they're doing. I think they've built an amazing platform for artists to perpetuate themselves as a brand, promote themselves. I also like how they have a social media network, a blog, things where you can perpetuate your brands. But I did a bit of digging and I couldn't find too many brands using Redbubble. So I decided to make my own Redbubble account. So if you visit the Redbubble Boywolf account, you can buy some Boywolf apparel, but it comes with our limited edition Boywolf watermark on it. So we're gonna know you shopped at Redbubble, so do it so you support Redbubble. But you're making an oath to yourself, a secret oath, that your next t-shirt you buy direct from us, because we make better margins that way, okay? Now, and I love Redbubble for what they're doing it, but let's explore this, seriously. Let's sit down, get the CEOs together. Let's sit down and explore the possibilities of expanding this model, okay? Look, to wrap everything up, thank you for entertaining, or letting me entertain you at least. I hope it was somewhat informative, yeah, a little bit. Fun, you had a laugh, I guess. There's not too much I can do to explain what I do, because it's just so obscure. But thank you for letting me talk about it for a little bit. Thank you to Toby, Redbubble, all the other speakers. You guys are amazing. Everyone for coming out today.
After that speech, I feel like we all may need a break. So the bathrooms are just through to the right-hand side through that door. Feel free to grab another drink, and we will convene again in 10 minutes for the panel. Thanks very much. So the question was, did you do a course to learn about branding?
Nice. Yeah. Oh, is it my answer now? Yes. No, I don't know. A course of branding? Yeah. I think it's like, well, for me, it's quite an innate thing. I live my brand, so I don't have to really think outside of that box. I just go, hey, what would I do? Rather than what would the brand do? Which makes it easier, I think. It has gotten me into trouble because sometimes I'm a bit inappropriate or outlandish with things.
I love that you're looking at me as you
But no, I've learned from all of this experience, and it has helped me. And yeah, like branding is something that you can be taught, but I think if you're taught it, it doesn't have the same value as if it's something you feel. I don't know, but that's my perspective, and I'm not an expert, so I don't really know.
So I studied graphic design, and I studied graphic design with a purpose that I would never do graphic design. But the idea of graphic design is that it's the center point of all things creative. So if you can understand the principles of graphic design, you can pretty much do any creative pursuit you want to do. And there's no particular literal way of doing what you do. Like from my perspective, doing t-shirts and collecting and then creating projects from it, you can't study that. Like you just have to do it. Like that's probably the best thing. But I've got inspired from people that have run brands that I will never be able to achieve that kind of status, but it inspires you to be better at what you do. And I was actually inspired by Steve Jobs. I think what Steve Jobs did is absolutely incredible. Like I don't think the world will ever see someone as innovative as he to connect that human interaction with technology. And it is so about what we are about. Like Back to the Future said we'd have Nikes and hoverboards by now, but Steve Jobs actually predicted the future, and as a result of what he did, it's pretty incredible. But he actually had a speech where it talks about the end of the day, if you can realise the potential and power that it's just a person behind the brand, you can actually do anything. And I think that's the I think that's the thing that probably, from my perspective, I always think about going, that's just a person, like they're going to say no. If they say no, who cares? Move on. Do you know what I mean? But if they say yes, really? And I think that's probably the best way of thinking about it.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Let's go to the back. Talking to the mic.
I think something that's come through from all of you today is that your brand building has a lot to do with community and talking to people and actually sharing that brand. So I think my question really is, how do you introduce your brand and what's your elevator pitch?
Anyone want to go first? Good question. Anyone?
I started wearing T-shirts, and from wearing T-shirts, people would then, friends of mine would then say, I like your T-shirt. And then other friends would say to me, hey, where did you get your T-shirt? Then other friends would say to me, hey, like, you wear different T-shirts every day. And it just grew and grew and grew. I've been wearing T-shirts for a very long time. And every single day, I have a conversation about T-shirts. And I guess over that period of time, that's where the branding really starts. It seems ludicrous to actually have a conversation about T-shirts every single day, but it actually happens, and that in itself, subliminally, is a brand. Like, and it's just what I've done. Like, it's no more complicated than that. I think also another thing as well is, I know everyone harps on it. I definitely know it's a cliche, but if you're passionate about it, you could probably have a conversation with Saul at the end of this, and he will probably talk to you about, like a Boywolf and ideas. You could probably get a lot of information out of Saul, because I feel he has a lot of information to give. So I'm going to pass it over to him.
All right. Well, yeah. Okay. I've also been wearing T-shirts every day, and my own T-shirts. So I wear my T-shirts and I go out and I meet people and I talk a lot, about my T-shirts, and then that's another conversation that leads to a conversation with somebody else about my T-shirts, and then from there I've met people that like to talk about T-shirts, and yeah. Look, to be honest, I learn a lot from this guy. He's like a secret mentor to me. Yeah, a little bit like a little of that. Look, at the end of the day, every day I learn. That's all I can say.
For me, it was just about a persistent imagery and just building up a back catalogue of imagery online, so that when people did stumble across my work, they'd then have a place to go where there was just a pre-existing library of work. And the advantage of something like Redbubble is there's not only a pre-existing library of work and product, but there's also an existing history of conversation and comments that people have regarding the work and that interaction. And that's one of the things that has always set Redbubble apart from other print-on-demand type sites, is that focus on the community element and being able to communicate with other artists. And that was something, for me, when I started doing things on Redbubble, that sort of dragged me out into being a lot more communicative and social with the art world, instead of just hiding away in my room.
So to recap the question, what was it?
Elevator pitch.
Okay, cool. I don't think I have a pitch. I think instead of talking about who I am, I use every opportunity to ask questions about who you are. I think this panel is a perfect example of that. I work for Hit and Run sometimes, which means flying around Australia with Eddie, screen printing T-shirts. And every 40-minute plane ride is 40 questions that I get to ask Eddie about how he got where he is. And every 40-minute phone call to Saul in the middle of the night asking, what the fuck am I doing? Totally helps. Crying, screaming. No, I never do that. It's fine. I know what's going on. I think it's just about being genuine, supporting other people, and eventually they're going to start asking you questions in return, and that's when you get to do your pitch. But to be first, you have to be genuine and care about them, or they're not going to care about you that much.
Cool. Any other questions? I'll be there.
Check 1, 2. Sue. Intellectual property and how to deal with it in a lawful manner. For most people, maybe you yourself, Saul, or Marian, you may kind of just be happy to go along with it, but when it comes to the point of actually dealing with it when it's being misused in another manner, how do you deal with it, and how do you find the avenues to deal with intellectual property?
Anyone want to go first? Yeah, sure. Oh, God.
All right, so I've had a few letters sent to me from lawyers over the years for things we've done, or things that I've done, and the one thing that actually has helped is I found a lawyer in New York that works for a massive firm that shares the same surname as me. So when I come back to that letter, they see this big fancy name with the lawyer's name the same as mine, and they go, holy shit, this guy has no limit to his resources. His uncle works for the firm, which gives me a bit of a flex on him. But I've never been ripped. Well, I have, but if it has, it's been, you wipe it off, whatever. I take the piss out of a lot of people anyway, so I can't get angry at it, But yeah, lawyers, that ain't me. Anybody?
I've got an issue officially launching worldwide tomorrow, which addresses a lot of these points. I have 5 copies here. They're $30 each. I'm not even joking. But I am seriously passionate about this actual question. I actually, I don't know, I've gone and spoken to intellectual property lawyers. There's very few of them in Australia. One of them actually left, but he was awesome. His name was Trevor Choi, and he actually is an intellectual property lawyer for graphic design firms and things like that. In this particular issue, $30, there is a few sections on legalities. So one really funny thing that happened was I interviewed Sean Stussy, and obviously he created Stussy, but he left in 1995. And then during this period, actually he's very similar to Saul in the way that he goes about things. And his name is Rick Klotz, and he created Fresh Jive. And he pretty much pushes the boundary on what you can and what you can't do. And so he created a t-shirt series called the Mad Parody Series. And he was basically saying, no one actually reads t-shirts anymore. They're just reading brand names. So he put Fresh Jive in the context of the same style as Stussy, the same style as Quicksilver, and the same style as all of this kind of stuff. Now, the actual reality of it, this was about 10 years ago, and it was funny because Rick Klotz got sued by Stussy. But if you ask Stussy himself, he will say to you, he actually parodied Chanel in terms of the double S look and stuff like that. So it's like this constant thing of repeating and going over it. So Fresh Jive actually got sued, but that's something that Sean Stussy, has to live with because it was out of his thing. His name is attached to that brand. And I just think that as we go into the future, it is going to be a thing that constantly comes up. I can't get over that you can actually own a colour. Like, is it going to get to the point where you can own shapes? And if it's to that point, like, what can you actually do? So, like, I feel like a lot of these people or a lot of these bigger companies need to take a chill pill a little bit, because in some cases, I think it's of benefit to them. Like, if you're doing a parody on, say, The Simpsons, I would say that that's kind of, you're giving the thumbs up to that brand, but The Simpsons might not see it that way. They may, I don't know. But it is an interesting thing, and T-shirts address all of this stuff.
With intellectual property, I think one thing that I know a few artists that I do know have had a problem with when doing the whole pop culture parody mashup is that I would probably say that if you're wanting to work for a particular company in the future, then don't mash up with anything they own, because I know a few people historically who ended up finding their names on a bit of a blacklist and were told they wouldn't be able to work there, and it took a while to make amends and get their name removed and be able to get that work. So it's a thing where it's a valid form of art and there's some great stuff that comes from it, but it can be a little bit of a minefield.
I think it's adorable. Every time I see anyone that steals anything that I've drawn, I think, that's a virtual high five. How cute are you? But I don't matter as much as these guys, and I'm not making money off it, so I like it. I think it's sweet. Especially when it's terrible. It's even sweeter. It's perfect.
Go into back.
This is something that I struggle with quite a bit with my branding. What percentage of your personality do you put into your branding as opposed to what you think will make you successful?
Let's not start with Saul. Anyone else?
Nicole Reid, you've got a very good logo. A very strong and Nicole Reid logo. I personally think it doesn't matter. I think that you've just got to... We're in this world for a short time. At the end of the day, just do stuff that you enjoy. And be who you are. Why should we pretend to be who we're not and try to appeal to corporate people or people that have money? Just do what you think is right. And at the end of the day, people are either going to like it or not like it. It doesn't matter. You're enjoying what you do, and it will come. I have definitely faced hard times and good times, but it will come. I have the belief. Then I'll pass over to Saul.
All right. Yeah, look, I put a lot of myself into what I do. People have said to me, hey, maybe you should pull back a little bit because if you fuck up, it's on you. But at the end of the day, it is what has made Boywolf what it is, and it is who I am. So I don't really worry too much about it. Yeah, I guess just bring it on, you know. If something that I do upsets somebody, that's all right as well, because at least I'm getting an emotional reaction from somebody, you know, which, again, I'm sorry if I upset you, but you paid attention, bro. I got you now, man. I win, yeah, exactly.
I think you can't help but have your own personality sort of seep through your brand to a degree. But I know for myself, I am sort of quite a private person, so only so much of me is ever really allowed out in that regard, especially in social media. But at the same time, the things that you do let out, you can have fun with them, and they do allow people to connect with you in a different way. And especially if there's a level of interaction there as well, then you can have a good time with it and still sort of protect yourself in a way.
I feel like I am the Spanx equivalent of my personality. So I make artwork that I want to make, that I would like, and I put photos of myself online. But yeah, they're going to be a little bit better than they are in real life. You're not going to see me without makeup on at 2 a.m. while I'm crying because I'm fat and I can't fit into my jeans and I've got to do a talk tomorrow and I have no idea what I'm going to wear. You're going to see that. But you will know that I love hip-hop. I love Wu-Tang. I'm queer. I live with my partner. I'm very proud of my sexuality. I'm proud of my influences, and I'm proud of my art. And it took a long time to get here. And I've made a lot of terrible things that have not gone down well. But the more art that I make, that's representative of what I believe in and what I care about, the further I'm going. And so the more I stay true to myself, you're going to get a community that follows you for that reason, because of your authenticity. And so I don't think it's a bad thing to put a lot of yourself into your brand, because then you can't fuck it up, because it's just you.
Actually, I've got one more thing to say. Like, I've definitely hired a lot of artists over the time, and I think that a lot of the decisions come from the top. And I think that I think art directors and creative directors and brand owners and things like that, they need to be responsible for and accountable for their own particular brand. And if you hire someone, you need to do your research and hire them for that particular look or aesthetic or thing. I don't know what it is. And I think that is very important. So that's why I wouldn't steer away from not being you. And I think that over time, there'll be lulls, but it's kind of funny hearing Marian because I've employed her to do some work for Patagonia, for Converse, and for TAC, and they're kind of three very different clients, completely different from one another. But I think some of them have been better than others, but it's also about trying to have that compromise as well. Like, there definitely has to be a compromise with the brand, but they have to employ you for you.
So we've got time for one more question. No, by all means. Anyone else? No? All yours.
Matthew, you said something about reverse image search. Can you explain that?
Just dance around.
I've basically got it as an add-on on my web browser on Firefox, where I can go to any image that is online, right-click on it, and one of the options that comes up is a little thing that says, "Who stole my image?" And then you just click on that, and it gives you a few options of different ways that you can search it, but by having it as the add-on, it does it all for you. If you don't have the add-on, you can basically do it through a Google image search, and I'd probably suggest basically just go to Google and say, I want to do a reverse image search, and that'll actually take you to the page and give you the breakdown of how to do it, because you can either do it by searching for things that you already have online, or you can do it by, it'll upload your image from your computer into the search engine, and that'll search for it from there. And then it just brings up every instance where that image appears online. And then you'll cry a little bit.
I've never done that, so.
I just want to thank all four speakers again. Please put your hands together. Before I let you all go and enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, I just want to let you know that it is Sunday, right? The next in our Redbubble series is actually the Redbubble Masterclass. This time round we actually have New York-based typographer Dirty Bandits who will be teaching a typography workshop. It's limited to 20 people. I will flick this image back up on the screen in a minute, but feel free to register, otherwise we'll be promoting it really soon. Thank you so much for coming and have a good night.